Hi guys, it's Mark Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi, also Mark Zicree of Space Command. And for those of you who are going to be at the Star Trek convention in Las Vegas in a few days, I will be there too. You can meet me, talk to me, scan me, and make little 3D copies of me that you can print out, whatever you'd like. So it is an amazing time. We're shooting Space Command. Lots is happening. But today, I'm going to talk about something even more amazing, or at least as amazing. This past week, they had the Congressional panel on UFOs, also known as UAPs. You can call them whatever you want. In the old days, they were called flying saucers, and we're going to get into it right now, right here at Mr. Sci-Fi Central. So, I watched the panel. It's on YouTube. You can watch it too. It is phenomenal. Phenomenal. There had been a whistleblower who was a high security clearance kind of guy, and he was doing interviews before these congressional hearings, but the congressional hearing was even better than what he was promising because it was 3 witnesses, and they all were impeccable in terms of their credentials. One was a long-term pilot in the military, one has high security clearance within the intelligence community, etc. It was just great. And so here's let me walk through some of this and unpack some of this, because it's a fascinating history, and I'm following it with great interest. Now let's start with the congressional hearing itself. It went for 2 hours, and one thing that was really remarkable about it was Republicans and Democrats acting like they're supposed to, where they're asking questions that are relevant. They aren't grandstanding. They aren't making speeches. They're treating each other with respect. They're actually there to find stuff out, to act in an efficient way. These are people that normally are just impossible, many of them, and here they were acting like I remember Congress used to act when I was a kid, where they had respect for each other, and they weren't always just trying to score points against each other. And so you had Matt Gaetz and you had Ocasio-Cortez, and they were both asking questions and fascinated by what they were finding out and looking for how they could move forward to find out even more. So kudos to you guys. I wish it was like that all the time. One gets very tired of the political game of doing the sound bite for the evening news to be able to raise more money. I was just so that was a relief and wonderful. And I had no idea that Matt Gaetz actually, wasn't a total jerk. And I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't badmouth him, but he's an intelligent guy, and he was asking intelligent questions, and he has a background where he knew what he was talking about. So that was cool. It was cool. So doesn't mean I won't disagree with him on many things, but on this issue, go Matt Gaetz, really. So here's what they said. Here's the gist of what they said. That they had personal, direct experience of seeing UFOs/UAPs. They're no longer called UFOs because that got greatly, was used to, talk about people with aluminum foil hats and all that stuff. So now they're UAPs. Fine, whatever they're called. But mysterious aircraft/spacecraft that have capabilities that are not within our own technology. So they can move at incredible speeds. They can change direction on a dime. They move at accelerations that would kill a human being. All sorts of cool stuff. Now, so they were verifying that they have stuff on video. They have it on radar. They have it on other tracking devices. And David Grush, I think it's David Grush, something like that. He was saying, of course, the most explosive things, which is, he said that the American government has crashed vehicles in their possession along with their pilots, who are what he called non-human biologicals, my favorite term of the week. And basically what he's saying is these are craft not made by people, and whether they're spacecraft or whatever, if they fly and they go underwater, that they are built by somebody other than us, and that we have recovered the physical evidence, the creatures themselves, whatever they are. Now, to basically unpack it a little more, you could say a non-human biological is anything from an amoeba to my dog, but but in this context, he's at least offering the tantalizing possibility that this might be creatures that are not human but are of a vast intelligence and ability. We'll see. But if you study the history, now here's the cool part. Also, what's different in 2017, I believe it was, the story broke that the government had an agency investigating UFOs, and that they had video, and several of these videos were released, and the New York Times published it, broke the story, and it was just astonishing to finally see videos from the government, from fighter jets, of UFOs. Just amazing. And so all of a sudden, the government, which for decades had been saying there was no such thing, we're now saying they exist, and we don't know what they are, but they're of an advanced technology. Cool, super cool. And it's of such an advanced technology, it's obviously not one of our adversaries, China, Russia. They couldn't be pulling this off. It's just not anywhere near. It's decades, if not centuries, ahead of anything we've got now. Incredible. And also, they were looking at testimony from commercial pilots and from military pilots. And Michael Shermer, who has a skeptic website and videos and so forth, and magazine, at least he used to, the Skeptical Inquirer, he was saying, well, pilots can be mistaken, military and commercial pilots are no experts, and scientists, the Blue Book, Project Blue Book had scientists, and they said there were no such things as advanced technology, extraterrestrial craft, any of that, and they were scientists, and they would know what they're talking about. Well, in this case, as someone who studied this subject, he's mistaken, because pilots actually do have an expertise where they can tell that something's not an aircraft. They can tell what might be birds. The idea that one of these pilots back in the day was chasing Venus, thinking it was an alien craft is insane, is total crap. Not true. It was insulting then, and it's insulting now. So these scientists, what made them not reliable experts was they went in with a pre-assumption that they were there to basically shoot down all this stuff. And J. Allen Hynek, who was one of those scientists who later appeared in Close Encounters, he regretted very much that he had said that it could be swamp gas. He later admitted that he was totally wrong, and that his task then was to basically find ridiculous explanations for things and not actually look at them and really study them with an open mind. So that was a great admittance. He became one of the great UFO researchers of all time. And I've always been skeptical on this subject. Rod Serling didn't believe in UFOs. I tend not to, but this evidence is certainly incredibly intriguing. And boy, I'm rooting for it to be true. I mean, if they revealed alien craft, if they revealed alien creatures, this would change everything. And I just am looking forward to that enormously. And it's and David Grush is saying, well, it may be other dimensions, it may not be extraterrestrials. Fine, anything. I mean, the main question that I would have is do these remains have DNA that we can sequence? Because if you sequence DNA, you could find out if something was of human lineage, or if it was completely different, something completely different. Obviously, an octopus would not have the same DNA markers as a human. There would be certain similarities, and I think life everywhere might have certain biological similarities, because what we find in the the hot temperature vents in the ocean, the life forms that live there, the worms that were just revived after 46,000 years. Life has enormous adaptability, but it's still, all life on Earth is still made of the same basic components. But it just utilizes those components in different ways to survive. But here's the fun part about all of this, which you may well not know. The current people looking into the UAP phenomena, the idea of listening to the testimony of military pilots and commercial pilots as the best testimony you could get, the most reliable, the most interesting, where it's most likely to be backed up by radar and so forth. This is not the first time that someone has had that idea, because back in the early days of the flying saucer experience, there were others who were thinking along the same lines and encountering the same kind of resistance. So let's get into this a little bit. The first now even if you go back into the history, there are people who've been seeing odd things in the skies from time immemorial. You know, in the 19th century, there were people seeing things in the skies that they thought were airships. Couldn't account for what they were, and some people even think that Ezekiel might have seen a flying saucer, or some extraterrestrial craft, because he describes a wheel within a wheel and all these odd things that seem like what someone from a non-technological society would describe of a technology he doesn't understand. Wheels within wheels, that sort of thing. It's very interesting to ponder all this stuff. No way of knowing the yay or nay of it. But in 1947, there was a pilot who saw what looked to him like saucers skimming over the ocean on top of these mountains. And he described that, Kenneth Arnold, and it took fire. And all of a sudden the phrase flying saucers became popular. And you had a lot of people looking into this, and a lot of people reporting on what they were seeing, and some were obviously hoaxes, some were obviously other things people were mistaking, and there were also secret balloon tests that the government was doing, and high altitude balloon tests. Some of that stuff, undoubtedly, yes, it was reported. People didn't know what they were seeing. Fine, but then there's also Roswell, where there was something was going on, and God knows what the truth of that is, but. There was a guy named Donald Kehoe, and he wrote this book. And here, let's see, where did I put it? There's another, here we go. Here's another book. He wrote several books on flying saucers. Flying Saucers Top Secret. And Major Donald E. Kehoe, U.S. Marine Corps retired, Director of the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena. And this is actually a signed and inscribed copy I recently acquired. And this over here, yeah, there's Donald Kehoe was from the military, and he had an aviation background, and he was well known, and he had many people in government who treated him seriously and would tell him on what was going on, and he would report on it, and he would sometimes not be able to use the real names, but he was a totally reliable witness, and he was talking about what pilots were seeing, commercial pilots, military pilots, and it's all very, very interesting. And there were others writing along similar lines. There were a lot of books on flying saucers. Here's another one. I love this cover, Behind the Flying Saucers. It's like, how do you get sexy babes in lingerie on the cover of a book about flying saucers? Well, that's how you do it. Wonderful, wonderful. So now it's the same thing, and people are saying, and it's pilots saying the same thing. But when you look at the history, they have been seeing these things and saying these things for over 70 years. And that's amazing. And there's a great consistency. For instance, in one of the books I'm reading now from the 1950s, pilots are talking about seeing a vehicle that's like a squashed, it's white or silver, it's like a squashed ball or orange. Well, that's very much like the Tic-Tac. And, the pilot who was testifying the other day to the Congress and being treated very seriously, which was terrific, he saw a 40-foot-long Tic-Tac that flew through the air, flew underwater, was able to move at incredible speeds. The question that no one's asking, the most important question, of course, is with a 40-foot Tic-Tac, how large are the aliens that would need to use that as a breath mint? No one's thinking of that. No one's thinking of that. But, probably it's a silly question. I don't know. It's not for me to say. but seriously, it's a 40-foot craft that moves from the periphery of space to just above the water and below the water with incredible skill and speed and technology. Brilliant, just brilliant stuff. And the history of how the government has treated UFOs has been extremely disturbing, because initially, because there are reports of things like nuclear facilities having their controls suddenly shut down by UFOs that are hovering above, and radar being turned off, and all sorts of, and a lot of UFOs, UAPs at military installation, military tests. Very interesting. And you might say, if there was an alien species, if there was these creatures, why haven't they communicated overtly with us? Well, because if you thought of us as, someone once joked that there's actually one extra species of great apes, except it got to name itself. we are an extremely dangerous species, incredibly violent, incredibly destructive, constantly doing things toward our own self-destruction, wiping out our planet's ecosystem, all of these things. Would you want to befriend these creatures? And, it's one thing to look at a gorilla, it's another thing to open the cage and let it out. And gorillas are more peaceful than we are. So I don't think there's any question why they wouldn't want to, put their cards on the table with us. It's I think if you look at Star Trek and the whole notion of the Prime Directive, I think that's at work, but with us, as the primitive society. But from the beginning, at first the government was trying to be very open about UFOs and the investigations and wanting people to say what they were seeing. But then I think when it dawned on the government that it was a technology that we could not cope with, that the government could not protect us, could not turn it around, was not the big father, all-powerful father, then they decided to make it, they had a campaign to discredit UFOs, to make it an object of ridicule, to make those who were reporting it seem ridiculous, and to put their careers at risk. And that's what they did for many decades. And there's been a lot of documentation of that. And now finally, it's coming around to where it originally started, which was what's going on here, what's the truth. And my gosh, they were talking about, the witnesses were talking about having to do things behind closed doors to tell the Congressional Committee what actually is going on. I hope that stuff comes to light. I hope they don't keep it secret. If they are crashed vehicles, if there are non-human biologicals, I want to know, and the public deserves to know, and the world deserves to know, because this is bigger than any government. This is bigger than any vested interests of big business or government or any of it. This is not a security issue. This is a human issue. We need to know, quite simply. And within my lifetime, I want to know, not just about flying saucers, not about this stuff, but just about life elsewhere in the universe, everything. So that's it for now. Very interesting history. And these books like this one are on audio, and you can listen to them, and I recommend them. This book is on LibriVox.org. You can actually listen to it for free, and I recommend that. It's a fascinating subject, and I think there's a lot of goofiness around the subject, and I certainly don't believe some of the wilder claims, but where you draw the line is where you personally choose to draw the line. So that's it for now. If you want to buy Space Command shares, contact me below. We need more dough to be able to finish VFX and all of that stuff. But thanks very much for being part of the world of science fiction and my world. And we will talk to you again very soon. Bye, guys.